Hello! In this short video I'm going to show you how to make your very own paintbrush using very simple materials. I don't have a name for the brush, but it's easy to make and you can create some pretty cool patterns with it. Let's get creating. Here we have a regular paintbrush. It has a handle, then the metal part is called a ferrule. This bit over here is called a crimp that attaches the ferrule to the handle, and then at the end we have the bristles. We are going to be using our own materials for creating the handle, the ferrule and the bristles. So let's get started. So for the handle I'm just using a simple wooden barbecue stick. You could use, for example, the handle of an old paintbrush or whatever stick you have available, but this was quite convenient for me, so that's why I chose this. Then for the ferrule we're going to use good old masking tape, and then optionally, if you wanted to add some more thickness to the ferrule and maybe make the bristles stick a bit better, we could use regular blue tack as well, but this is optional. And then for the bristles I have a single feather of a peacock. And as you can see, we don't need a lot of materials to make our own paintbrush. All of the items are fairly basic, except perhaps for the peacock feather. And for starters, I'm going to shorten the handle to a proper length. So the barbecue stick I have is quite long, so I'm just going to cut it a bit shorter, like so. So now our handle is ready. And then next we're going to separate all of these individual, I'm going to say hairs, but I'm not sure what the proper technical term is. We're going to separate all of these individual hairs from the feather, so plucking them apart one by one like this. We can determine the thickness of the bristles by altering the amount of the individual hairs we use from the feather, and for our purpose I'm going to want to keep it fairly thin, so we'll do, let's say, 10 individual hairs for our bristles. So then we'll just separate these. Then I'll save the rest for later. So now we have our approximately 10 pieces of feather. We can take the blue tack and we can start by attaching them on the blue tack like so. I'll try to keep them all approximately the same length, so we'll place them around the same spot in the blue tack. And using the blue tack first will make taping the bristles to the handle easier at a later point, because we are now getting these individual pieces of feather stuck on the blue tack, and we can more easily roll it around the handle and then tape it, as opposed to trying to get these stuck on the tape or on the handle directly. Now that all of these are stuck to the blue tack, we can put our handle here and roll the blue tack around it. I'm simply squeezing this to make it a bit tighter around our handle, and then we can take our tape and we'll roll the tape around the handle a bit. Let's make it nice and tight, and that way we can create our ferrule over here. And here we have our very own paintbrush. Now if you had something like duct tape or other tape that's more resistant to water, that would be a better choice, but we had our regular masking tape and we just used that. Now let's have a look what we can do with this. You could use this brush, for example, with watercolors, but you can also use it with acrylics. The key, however, is to make sure that the paint is wet and fluid enough. Let's moisten our brush. so that it becomes a one long, almost like a whip. It feels a bit different than using your regular paintbrush as you have less control, but with little practice we can use the brush to create different types of patterns. So we could do, for example, long lines like so, and a short preview that you saw on the bottom part. A nice pattern you can create is you put the brush on the paper, and then as you pull it sideways you can create these almost petal-like shapes, as you can see here. And we can also use it for this sort of whiplash patterns that you can use, for example, in mark making. And once you're finished with your artwork, clean up the brush as you would do a regular brush, so depending on the medium you're using. So here I'll wipe off the excess paint and then I'll rinse this with water. I hope you enjoyed our short video on how to make your own paintbrush. I'm thinking maybe we should call this a whip brush, given the nice whiplash patterns you can create, but please let me know in the comments of what you think a good name for this type of brush would be. As always, feel free to ask if you have any questions. Thank you for watching and happy creating.